Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today has been training in Kenpo Karate since 1985. He's currently ranked as a 9th degree black belt. He also attained his black belt in Modern Arnis under Grandmaster Remy Presas in 1991 and a black sash in Dragon Kung Fu under Master Chau. Also holds the rank of blue belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He's been running his own school in London, Ontario since 1995. In addition to having classes 7 days a week, he also teaches an online international black belt class every Thursday evening to students from many lineages and numerous countries. He also teaches seminars regionally, nationally, and internationally. Outside of martial arts, he's married, has 2 children, and received his PhD in sociology in 2013, and is currently a full professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at Western University. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Jamie Seabrook. How you doing today, Jamie?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, Brian.
Hey, I appreciate the time. I truly do. I'm glad we're able to make this happen. What we like to do with all my guests, I mentioned you started training in 85 in Kenpo. What I want to know is what led to that, where that first interest in martial arts came from, kind of where that first spark was that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Yeah, it was really interesting timing. Every year, annually, we have an event here in London, Ontario, Canada, called the Western Fair, where essentially there's tons of rides, lots of good food, events. And often at these events, we would see different martial arts schools that would come and put on demonstrations and what have you. But there wasn't a lot of schools back in the mid 1980s. So in 1985, in September, I was there with my mom and my dad and walking around, and I saw a demonstration, a karate demonstration. I didn't know, of course, what kata were at the time, but there was a lot of black belts doing kata demonstrations, a lot of board breaking, a lot of brick breaking, and a lot of weaponry. I was really fascinated by the weaponry. And normally my parents would want to keep walking, but I kind of wanted to stay still and see what was going on. And I was so impressed with the martial arts demo that the very next evening, which was a Monday night, I actually remember the date, September the 9th of 1985, nice. I joined a Kenpo Karate school right in London, Ontario.
That's actually kind of funny because September 9th, 1992 is when I joined my first Taekwondo school. I had done other styles before that, but it was because I remember it was my mom's birthday at the time. I joined my college Taekwondo class when I started my freshman year of college in 1992. So kind of a cool date.
Yeah, no doubt.
Nice. So now was it the school you joined, was it the same school that did the demo? And if not, what led you to that specific school?
No, it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of schools in the mid-1980s in London, Ontario. There was a select number, maybe 5 or 6 total. Mm-hmm. And we just geographically went to the school that was close to where our neighborhood was. So we lived in an area called Oak Ridge Acres in London, Ontario, and this other area in Hyde Park, Ontario, although it's kind of part of London now, was only about maybe an 8-minute drive. Okay. So we joined that school. I had no idea anything about different martial arts styles, and it happened to be a Kenpo Karate school. Of course, this is also right around the time of the original Karate Kid, so it kind of started to get more people enrolled in martial arts schools, not just in London but worldwide.
Yeah, definitely. So then, you basically you picked the closest school, which a lot of parents do it that way. It's convenience. Once you got into it and once you start, what are some things you remember that made you want to keep doing it about that specific school, that specific instructor? What are some things that stood out?
Yeah, it was really interesting. My first couple of years, maybe 85 to 87-ish around there, there was really good leaders and teachers, and my dad, I know, really wanted to keep me in it and paid extra money for private lessons. It was a kind of a hybrid Tracy Kenpo Karate system.
Oh.
The instructor at the time had moved from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so really was the first to introduce Kenpo into Canada. And it was interesting, though, the first few belts, maybe up to around purple, kind of typical of a young kid. I didn't know if I wanted to continue, and I started to, fake stomach aches, sore throats, you name it, when it was karate night. And then something really, really fascinating happened. My dad said, hang around. And there was two real, I guess you could say, catalyst events that really kept me in martial arts and knew I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. The first was when I was a green belt, I won a grand championship in fighting forms and weaponry. And I'm not saying that in any way to brag, because Brian, up to that point, we used to compete a lot and I used to lose a lot. And when I say lose a lot, often, last, second last. So I didn't have a lot of success in tournaments. So I don't even know how it happened, how I won this grand championship. But I'll tell you this, it was fun to win. And when you get a taste of victory, you want to do it again, right? It's like you want more of that. So that was kind of a precipitating kind of factor that led to me wanting to do it long term. And the other one, which is really interesting, you probably know the name. Our instructor brought in Professor Wally J, small circle Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. And I can't remember Wally J's age at the time, high 70s, low 80s. But I was just absolutely fascinated by two things. One, his skill, but two, just as importantly, his humility. Mm-hmm. And humility means everything to me in martial arts. And his ability to inflict so much pain in a humble, gentle way blew me away. And I went home that night and I told my dad, I am going to do martial arts for the rest of my life. That was about 87, 88, and I never looked back.
So back up a little bit. You talked about doing some tournaments. I'm curious, first of all, what led you to even start the competition side of martial arts? Is it something you had a choice in at your school? And with the fact that you said you lost a lot, what made you want to keep doing it if you weren't having success initially? It's
an amazing question. So I didn't know if tournaments were something that's the standard or the norm, but at the school, we competed a lot. And I can't recall this completely if it was mandatory. If it wasn't mandatory, it was at least very much pushed on us.
Okay.
So I remember my first tournament being in Orangeville, Ontario, which is about a 2.5 hour drive from where we live in London, just outside of Toronto, Canada. And, it just didn't go good for me. I mean, I didn't get a lot of fun out of it. It's not fun getting kicked in the ribs and punched in the face. And, back then they didn't have the same, not that I had any of that I remember, but concussion protocol, you just kind of went at it back then. And, it's not fun to give up your weekend and to lose, but it was pushed on us. So I kind of hung around. And then again, when I got to green belt, when I won the grand championship and I won first in all my divisions, I didn't know how I did it, because I didn't think I was all that good, quite frankly. But the fact that I won, I'm like, wow, this is a cool feeling. I kind of want to do it again.
Nice. I like it. Now, how long did you stay with that specific school?
I was there 1985 till 1991. And I'll tell you what happened. Around 1987, when I was there, I don't know what belt I was, maybe blue or something like that at the time. But the instructor, who's now retired, Mike Donovan, he had a choice. He had a choice to go Ed Parker route. Our school was a affiliate member of the International Kenpo Karate Association, obviously headed by Grandmaster Ed Parker. Mm-hmm. But he had a choice to go directly and make it a full American Kenpo curriculum and go the Ed Parker route, or go choice B, Grandmaster Remy Presas, Modern Arnis. And he chose the latter. Oh. And that meant, Brian, by default, around 87, roughly 1987, I started training as well as my Kenpo training in Modern Arnis, because we were going to a lot of camps and traveling. And it's quite interesting being such a young guy. Mm-hmm. At 87, I think I would be maybe 12, 13 or something like that. Okay. 12. Even at that young of an age, you wouldn't think of this happening today. Me and about 4 other people would start traveling everywhere to go train at Modern Arnis camps. And I really, really liked Grandmaster Remy Presas. I was blown away by his skill. And so I was cross-training, you could say, in both Kenpo, although Kenpo was my base, with Modern Arnis, largely directly under Grandmaster Remy Presas.
Wow. And at that age, did you find it difficult to train in two styles, or were they different enough where that wasn't an issue?
I found they were different enough. Like, Grandmaster Remy Presas used to always, say it's the art within your art because it blends. But I did find a lot of the stick and knife training and the sinawalis and the drills quite different. And the cool thing about Filipino martial arts is that, you'll partner with someone and do that drill, give and take for, who knows, 20 minutes, half an hour straight. So you're getting so many reps in, unlike maybe a Kenpo technique where you'll demonstrate it one or two times and then you'll move on. It's constantly give and take reps. So I really love that. And I found, at least for my brain type, I could pick up on the material quite well because I'm someone that needs a lot of reps, and it worked really, really good for me.
Nice. All right. So then you said you were there till about 91. What was next in your journey?
Yeah. So then what happened was around, I got my black belt in Kenpo Karate in August of 1990. So that's when I got my first degree. And then just a year later, I got promoted to black belt second degree in Kenpo. That's 1991.
Okay.
And it was interesting, Brian, because you'd think, you just got promoted, you're on cloud nine. I was looking for something else. And I'm going to tell you why. I was probably a brown belt. 89 is probably my best guess. I got my hands on something, VHS, called the Panther series. Nice. And it was called When Kenpo Strikes by someone named Larry Tatum.
Yep.
Yeah. And, I remember that the first VHS tape I got was Long Form 6. And I'm watching it going, oh my goodness, like I really love what I'm doing, but I love this. Like I'm going to be honest, I felt it was a kind of a higher level, much higher level of sophistication that I didn't know as well. I mean, again, we were kind of Tracy, I would say more Tracy hybrid, but obviously a lot of the Parker curriculum overlapped. Yeah. The short forms, the long forms, a lot of the standard techniques, 5 swords, thundering hammers, etc. But I really, really liked this. And of course, no internet at the time. We have this VHS tape. So there was a guy in London, Ontario named Joe Foster. He's still around. And Joe Foster also ran an Olympic karate alongside the guy that I trained under, Mike Donovan. And in the mid 80s, or I should say high 1980s, when Mike Donovan had the choice to go the Grandmaster Ed Parker route or the Grandmaster Remy Presas route, Donovan chose Remy. Joe Foster did the other. Okay. He switched. And so his Olympic karate, he switched names a few times. He became a direct student under Ed Parker and started to train out of his home, went to many, many seminars. Of course, didn't get too many years with him because of Mr. Parker's unfortunate, untimely death in December 1990. However, to go back to your question, Brian, in 1991, to be honest with you, soon after being promoted to second degree black belt in Kenpo, I made the switch to American Kenpo and started training under Joe Foster, although it was not very long lived.
Wow. Okay. And then same kind of question from before. How different was, in your mind, the American Kenpo versus kind of more the Tracy Kenpo blend that you were doing?
I feel like, I have a lot of memories of the school. Again, it was short term there for, reasons that I'm not going to really get into. But I'll say, Brian, that I thought that there was a lot more hands-on contact with the Kenpo self-defense techniques.
Nice.
And it doesn't mean we didn't do that at my other school. We did, but it was like a lot more, hitting and hitting hard. Mm-hmm. And sparring, I felt, no problem keeping up with any of the group there. I was a second degree black belt. I had no issues there with keeping up with sparring. And I want to tell you why. And I want to say this, that one more piece of my journey. Maybe again, something about those high 1980s. There was a Kung Fu master who I didn't know he was a master at the time, but one of his sons had enrolled in the original school I was in and was taking Kenpo. And then, Sunday afternoon, I mean, we trained crazy, like 7 days a week. And the Kung Fu master, his name is Master Paul Chau, you mentioned him, asked for me and a few others, hey, do you want to learn some Kung Fu on the side? Yeah. I mean, this was a guy who like his skill, I mean, he would have people crawl down and kneel down, and there might be 10 people lined up, and he'd jump over top of all 10 of you, do a flying side kick and break a brick, for example. Like his flexibility was something I've never really seen before. And that's also when I started also training in Kung Fu. So I had that kind of exposure. And then to go back to the Kenpo, I was now in a situation where I was cross training in 3 arts, in Kenpo, in Modern Arnis, obviously, and in Kung Fu. But, a lot of people will say that's so much cross training. You got to remember, this is how I see it. Kenpo's origins come from China, not Japan. Yep. So Kenpo is really, if you really want to, in my opinion, really very much tied to Kung Fu. So it was a lot of similarity, I could say, that I think enhanced my Kenpo.
Okay, cool. Wow. All right. So then what was next? You said you were only at that American Kenpo school for a short time. What was next? Did you just focus on the Kung Fu and the Arnis, or did you start in another style? Or
no, Kenpo was always my bread and butter, and I never wanted to like, Kenpo was always my home art. In fact, the owner of the school, Master Paul Chau, actually talked about me potentially opening up a franchise school in Kung Fu, but I wanted Kenpo. Kenpo was my home art. Yeah. So very soon thereafter, I continued. I went back to the original school temporarily because there was no other Kenpo in London, just that one school and the American Kenpo school. But soon thereafter, I got involved in the WKKA, the Worldwide Kenpo Karate Association. And at the time, that was headed by Grandmaster. Well, he got his 10th around the same time I joined. Grandmaster Joe Palazzo, Richard Huck Planis, and Frank Trejo. Yes. And the really cool thing there that I liked is, if you know those 3 phenomenal, they're all very good, but all very diverse. Yeah. So, when we would go to WKKA camps, we would get the sparring from, Frank Trejo. We would get the broken down to such good detail forms of Richard Huck Planis. And we would get, a lot of the techniques, for example, from Joe Palazzo, really from all of them. Yeah. But they also brought other people in, people like Dr. Muang Ji and Bando. Sometimes you'd get people like Superfoot Bill Wallace. Nice. And so it was a lot of really good training and really, my strong, you could say, American Kenpo started in 91, but that's where it really took off at that point.
Wow. Nice. First of all, I love these stories because I don't know how much you know about my background, but I always wanted to learn Kenpo ever since seeing the Larry Tatum videos when I was a kid, and then the Perfect Weapon came out. But where I was, there was nothing. There was no Kenpo schools. So in 96, I actually moved to California just to train in American Kenpo and did training with Larry Tatum and Jeff Speakman and also Jim Diggs. I don't know if you know that name or not, but unfortunately, with personal reasons, had to move back to the Midwest. So I was only out there, a little under a year. So I did not get to keep going. And even still to this day in my area, there's no true American Kenpo schools. I'd have to drive 3.5 to 4 hours to train. So it's still one of those styles. My core system is traditional Taekwondo. I've also studied. My first style was Tung Sudo when I was 10, and I did Shotokan in high school. I did some Aikido. Did some Hapkido, did some grappling, did some boxing, but awesome. I love hearing the Kenpo stories. So that's always makes me smile, definitely. So you mentioned now, I think it was Master Paul Chau, you said, asked you about possibly opening a school. When did the teaching side of it start for you? Did that start what belt level, what style did you first get involved in teaching martial arts?
That's an amazing question. I've been on several podcasts. I've never got that question. That's a great one. Really? So here's what I'll say. At the original karate school, Kenpo Karate school I was at, it was called Olympic Karate. This is another really enticing thing about the school is I was paid. I was paid every week for teaching, really from brown belt level and higher. Okay. Certainly when I got my first degree, I remember, biking there, which would probably be good, 25-minute bike ride as a 16-year-old boy for summer camps, Monday to Friday. I'd teach 9 to 4 and then stay at the school and train at night.
Nice.
It really took over my life. Like I loved martial arts that much. So when it was 1990, I got my black belt. So certainly at that point, I was teaching most nights of the week.
Okay.
And, certainly before that as a brown belt, I was teaching as well, but not that often, but pretty much every day of the week. We were even open on Sundays. And I know things are different today in 2024, but as a 16-year-old, I had a key to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And which meant I loved martial arts so much that I'd show up when no one was there and go train, hit the heavy bag. I just got really addicted to it. But I also can say I had a lot of really good people that were, highly talented that motivated me. So my original instructor, of course, Mike Donovan, and Master Paul Chau, Grandmaster Remy Presas. Those are 3 people initially that, really set a motivation thing for me. And, and then after I got my black belt, and I say this, honestly, but humbly, I started to compete a lot. And remember that I got used to dead last or second last quite often.
Mm-hmm.
I had never gone in a tournament thereafter as a black belt. And I'm saying this just honestly and humbly because of the way I thought, where I didn't, come out with first or second.
Wow.
And it just because it's like, and I'm not saying that in a bragging way, but I feel like it was like, if I'm going to train hard for something, it's a different way of thinking. I'm thinking victory. Like I'm not going into something, just to go, well, maybe it goes good, maybe it goes bad. Like if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going in almost expecting, and I hate to say that in a bragging way, but expecting to win, and it's like Hoist Gracie said one time, when I see people jump up and down after they win in the UFC, it's like, he goes, were you expecting to lose? Right?
Yeah.
You seem so shocked that you won. Presumably you went in thinking you were going to win, right? Yeah. And that's kind of, humbly how I kind of went into everything. And I remember one year in 2004, he's actually friends with me on Facebook. There was a master, Kiyoshi Christopher Diliberto, who was an 8th degree at the time. I was 6th degree in 2004. And he had gone, I don't know, I think it was well over 1,000 straight tournaments without a loss.
Wow.
And it was actually kind of, almost like advertised, like that's how, and I went to compete against him. And to me, it's like honor. I have so much respect and honor for this guy. He's so good. And, I had a choice, long form 6 and from American Kenpo, or what we call Fu Hak Sun Ying, the tiger and crane from the Black Dragon system of Kung Fu. Mm-hmm. I opted for the latter. And I just, I of course, you don't know how it's going to go, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to go into this and I believe I'm going to win. And it was extremely close, but I got it.
Wow.
And I think it's more, and I'm saying this, please don't take this the wrong way. Like it's more the mindset. Like It doesn't matter if he has gone 1,000+ straight tournaments without a loss. It's like the only thing that matters is here and now. Right. And that's kind of, it's not about me. Like my parents were really, really good at instilling that in me, and if things go wrong and you do bad, they say you didn't lose. You just go to the back of the line and redo it and make sure you get it right. Like that's the way so if it didn't go that well and Kiyoshi Christopher Diliberto smoked me, I don't view it like, oh, I lost. I view it like we got to do this again. And I think that kind of mindset is kind of stuck with me over the years. And I credit that to my parents and my dad, in particular, who is driving force in martial arts and faith.
That is cool. So do you remember your first time ever competing at the internationals? I'm assuming you've competed there.
Do you know something? That's the one tournament I've never competed at.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never, but I've competed all across Canada and the US, but I've never competed in the Long Beach tournament.
Dang. Okay. That's kind of surprising.
Maybe Brian, Ed Parker died in 1990, December. I got my black belt August of 1990. Mm-hmm. Mr. Parker was no longer around, so it didn't, you know what I mean?
Wasn't the same. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But, but now I've gone the other way in the sense that like, even though I've done, well at the, local, regional, national, international level, now I'm more, I guess you could say, against a point system, against tournament competition. And usually people that say that are people who shy away from it or haven't done well. Now my whole mindset is street self-defense and that focus.
Nice. That makes sense. So what year and what led to you making the decision to open your own school?
Oh, right. So I started university in 1992 here at Western University at a young age, at 17. And at my goal, we didn't have people in our family except for my brother, John, who were university graduates. So he kind of inspired me. And I thought, I just want to get my Bachelor of Arts degree and then get the heck out. So I got my BA in sociology in 1995 after 3 years in university. And then I was out. And I opened a full-time school August the 1st, 1995. And it was interesting because I ran a full-time school. You can't see me, but I'm putting full-time in quotation marks for 2 years. And this is crazy. I think I got up to maybe 75, maybe even 80 students, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I was barely making anything. Like I opened 7 days a week because the overhead was so high. And here, when you're young, you have all these grandiose ideas that, you're going to be extremely successful in business and make lots of money. And I was making money, but not much. So I closed in quotation marks my brick and mortar full-time school in 97 and moved into, at that time, I moved into a church, big location of a church, and went back in 1997, did my honors degree in sociology, hung around, and then did my master's degree in sociology. I think I graduated in 2001 or 2002. And I continued to run my school while I was in university 3-4 times a week. And then got a job working at a children's hospital and continued to run my school out of a really big location. We moved into a place called the Berkshire Club. It was like essentially almost like a massive gym.
Okay.
And taught there for many, many years, right up until something called the pandemic occurred.
Yep.
And then it's really interesting. When the pandemic occurred, everything shut down here in London in March 2020. And my wife, Chantel, who's my best friend, her brilliant idea, she's always 4 steps ahead. She says, Jamie, you don't know how long this is going to, go on. You need to create an online class. Because she knew it wasn't about money. It was like, she knew my passion for teaching is so great. I can't not teach. Berkshire Club was closed down. So we created an international, take that back, an online, quote unquote, international class. Didn't have many people because it was brand new. And it was literally meant, Brian, just to be a temporary thing because I'm a hands-on person. I like the physical contact. It was meant to be temporary until this pandemic stopped.
Yeah.
But what happened is it grew and it grew. And it's such an amazing, it's probably my favorite class of the week now. We've been doing it since, April 2020. We have black belts joined from all across the United States, many, many different states, all across Canada, and even black belts from Chile join us. So it's a group that I always say there's 2 things that I require, and that's eagerness to learn and humility. It's such a humble group and they inspire me. So I'm honored, privileged that they look to me as their teacher, but I get a lot of my energy, if you would, from them by them coming out every single week with a desire to learn. And that's kind of where I am now.
That is cool. Nice. So I want you to think back to that very first class you taught when you were a brown belt at your first karate school to now, over all those years. What do you think has changed the most about your teaching style? You can't teach what you don't know, obviously, right? But I think because I've taught for so many years, I've gained confidence in, public speaking. And I think that, as you improve in your skill and your knowledge in American Kenpo, you can teach beyond just, monkey see, monkey do. And I also credit a lot of my university education to teach in a way where people understand. Like we've all had, maybe it was high school, maybe it was college professor, university professor, teachers where, you leave the class and you're more confused. I don't think that helps anybody. So what I like to do, I'm always the most impressed as a student by, say, a martial arts instructor or a university professor who are able to take very quote unquote difficult concepts and theories and make them ridiculously easy. So I try to do that with the students, with my black belts also, is to take things that they think I'll never be able to get and make it so, ridiculously obvious. And that really, I feel, enhances their learning and their knowledge of the system.
I like that. Now, I was doing my research. Have you written a book?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I didn't even get to Grandmaster Larry Tatum, but that'll lead to my book.
Okay, cool.
So, got my 3rd degree black belt with the Worldwide Kenpo Karate Association, did my 4th and 5th degree black belt before transitioning to Larry Tatum. In 1999, I got my black belt, 5th degree associate professor. And, remember 99 is also a time when, hey, we got this thing called Hotmail and Google and much more access to things that we didn't have access to.
Yep.
So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to look up and contact Larry Tatum. He's the person that I've been, watching the most Panther series from. To be honest, I watched them all. But so I looked him up and I wanted to work towards training with Grandmaster Larry Tatum. 5 years later, in 2004, I got my 6th degree black belt from Larry Tatum. But this is a true story. I've said it before. I've never been someone who in any way, and I'm fortunate about that, hopefully it doesn't change. I've always had really strong mental health. I've never struggled with mental health ever. It doesn't get me wrong. We've had bad times and things hit, of course, and that's part of being human. But leading up to my 6th degree test, I got so nervous. I think because it was Grandmaster Tatum. Mm-hmm. And this is crazy, but I like to share this because it could be learning opportunity for other people to listen. I couldn't sleep at night.
Wow.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm doing martial arts 7 days a week. I'm running my school at night and I'm working full time at a hospital as a research associate / biostatistician for the pediatric department. And I need my sleep. I got to get to work. Everything is performance based. I couldn't sleep because I was so nervous and went to my doctor. I'm like, hey, I can't sleep. I got prescribed a sleep medication called Imivane. She says to me, Jamie, take half a tablet because it's going to clonk you out. So it did that for about 10 days and then it didn't work anymore.
Wow.
To take a half a tablet, I'd be up easily 24 hours straight. So then I graduated in quotation, from a half a tablet to a full tablet. Nothing worked. Wow. 24 hours. Yeah. And then I passed my 6th degree with flying colors. And I said to Grandmaster Tatum, I said, if you were to single out one thing that I need improvement on, what would you say? I'd like to, because it's one thing just to get to pass and, you got it, you did a great job. That's great. But one thing, and you know what he said to me? He said, it is really obvious to me, Jamie, that you have watched my DVD, VHS rather, videos religiously and stop trying to move like me and move like yourself.
Nice.
And you know what, Brian? It was like chains came off me. Mm-hmm. And from that point forward, I just thought never again. Immediately, I started to sleep perfectly and everything was back to normal. No prescription, no medication worked. It was instantly within 24 hours.
Wow. That's cool.
Uh-huh. And
then you said that how did that lead to the book then?
So then just a couple years later, I wanted to make a contribution to Kenpo. I'm kind of it's like when people kind of look to you as a leader, I think that with higher rank, it's important that you make contributions. So in 2006, I wrote a book and published a book called American Kenpo Mastery, a guide for students and instructors. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, that it really started to take off. Soon thereafter, I'll just kind of leave it at this. Was told you can't use the term American Kenpo, etc. So I kind of didn't push the book as much from that point forward.
Oh, okay.
As other Kenpo instructors also heard.
Yeah. Now, is that book still out there and available?
It's still out there, but I don't know how easily accessible it is, but you can find it, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I searched on it. I also found, I don't know, this one is maybe not you, but I found another martial arts book written by Jamie A. Seabrook.
That would be me.
Okay. Is it this one was had a different title?
Martial Arts Revealed.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
What led to that one?
Just, at the time, I had a master's degree and I like to write, and why not write about something that you love? And that's martial arts. It's interesting though, Brian, like a lot of people have told me they love American Kenpo mastery, like Kenpo people.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, are you going to do an upgrade? The funny thing is when I look back on the book, and being honest, now that I have a PhD, I could definitely make the writing much better than it is, but there's things I wrote in that book, some things that I no longer agree with.
Oh, okay.
And that's why and I'll give you an example. I used to believe, and I know a lot of American Kenpo seniors do as well, that Kenpo is a complete system and that you don't necessarily need to know anything on the ground. So in 2012, one of my higher black belts, Matt Trejo, him and I embarked on a new journey to study Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
Directly under the Gracie family. And, it was interesting. This is what's changed in me. This is how I view it, Brian. So I've spent, now 40 years into Kenpo come 2025. Sure, I could learn Muay Thai, I could learn Krav Maga, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's still 2 hands and 2 feet, and those are striking arts.
Mm-hmm.
If there was one area that I was very deficient, it's the ground. And I used to believe what a lot of people, high-rank Kenpo experts say, that just use your Kenpo on the ground. But I'll tell you, this is, once I got into it, if your Kenpo was not good enough to win at what it's best at, standing, to then make the argument, well, just use your Kenpo on the ground, doesn't hold a lot of water. And I found it was very humbling studying Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I still do, because you learn to lose.
Yeah.
And losing is a really good thing. And I think sometimes when, the bars and the stripes keep getting added to belts, I'm saying Kenpo, but you haven't lost in a long time. It's like you can almost feel like you are living in a sense of false security, and people kind of look up to you. And I would never want this from anyone, put you on a pedestal. I like getting tapped out because I go back to the drawing board and go, what went wrong there?
Yeah.
And then, you learn how to not get tapped out so easily by learning, good counters or counters to submissions. And it really enhanced my Kenpo. A lot of times people will make the switch to, say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and they'll go, done. I'm done with Kenpo. No, I was like the opposite. I love Kenpo more because of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but I certainly think about things different than I did when I wrote that book in 2006.
I love that's a great answer. So I know you had, I know Kenpo has some weapons involved in it. Obviously, Arnis has weapons. So over the years, what's your favorite weapon to train with?
Oh man, it's. I hate to say it this way. It's usually the weapon that I'm teaching. I really mean that. Like yeah. I love the sticks because of their function, practicality, yes. Logic. Right. I also love knives. I have a strong passion for the long spear and the saber from Kung Fu.
Nice.
I like, and this is only my opinion. I know not everyone would agree, but I think that weapons training makes you a more complete martial artist because it's like you learn how to move with the weapon as one unit. I remember in the early 1990s, I learned this form called Orfei Do Fa, and Do is like the saber, Fa would be like form. And I learned the saber form, but I said, Master Chau, what do you think? And he, things are different back then compared to not worrying about offending. Jamie, that was really bad. Yeah, like I'll be honest, you move like a chicken. Like, wow. Oh, thank you, sir. but didn't say it smiling, like really, really, really bad. And it's like, now you're worried about offending people, but it was interesting because I took that comment and I thought, wow, he thought I'm terrible. But I worked that saber so much that it became one of my go-to in weapons competition throughout the world and nice. Black belt competition. And I remember him messaging me one time many years ago saying, you've really taken ownership of that form. I'm proud of you. So that became one of my favorites. So it's like sometimes when
people tell you that, and he didn't in any way say this, but when people say, you can't do something, there's two ways to look at that. Go, okay, I'm going to take everything that was said and just move on, or go, there's something about gritting your teeth and refusing to, not follow that path and make sure you get it right. It was kind of similar to, I don't want to digress, but I'm saying this honestly, humbly. When I decided to go back and do a master's degree in sociology, there was a wonderful administrative assistant there. Her name was Denise, and she said, "Jamie, you got such a great personality. We'd love to have you. It's just not going to happen." And I said, "What do you mean it's not going to happen?" She said, "You don't have the grades to get into the master's program, but congratulations for getting this point." And I said, well, what do I need to get? And she gave me grades that, I had never gotten in my life. I promise on my life, I left that knowing 100% I was going to get in. Nice. Only because, again, it goes back to my parents saying, if someone tells you can't do something, don't accept that. And that meant that I had to get some grades in the 90s, which I had never done before. I was not that great of a student. And all of a sudden, call it a miracle, 92, 94, and I got in, and then I went and did a PhD. And I attribute a lot of that to, my parents really instilling in me, never to give up.
That's cool. So I mentioned in the intro, married with 2 kids. So is your family involved in martial arts also?
No, they're not. Not right now. So interestingly, I met my wife, Chantel, we had our first date in 1994 at Northern Black Dragon Martial Arts under Master Paul Chau. She was there. Nice. And I did everything wrong. You never date a student, but I did, but it worked out. So we got married in 2001. And we've been married 23 years. And my first daughter, Morgan, they both, when I say they're not training as extensively as they have in the past. Okay. Chantel doesn't train anymore, but my wife. But my daughters, Morgan and Madison, they both got their black belt. Morgan got her adult black belt. Madison got her junior black belt. Okay. And it's very interesting. They, learning from dad, and it's been a great experience. But they're not into it as much as I am, for sure. Mm-hmm.
That's okay though. See, my opinion, I think everyone should try it at least some point in their life. So it's cool that they did it. They stuck with it for a while. And if they decide to come back my opinion, it's a lot easier to come back to it years later once you got your black belt than if you maybe did it and only got your orange belt.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt.
So that's
good. Knowledge, skill aside, like there's so many great things about martial arts. Like I certainly don't want to say that I was an innocent little shy boy in university, but where a lot of people use that time on their own to maybe party a lot and get involved in things that maybe weren't the best choices. Mm-hmm. My reward from studying was, long 4, long 5. Nice. Kenpo techniques. And it helped my mental health. So, in a way where I could jump back into my reading and feel more energized than sitting and reading a book for 8 hours and not moving, which we know sedentary behavior is not good for health.
Yeah. I tell you, just after hearing your story, I think if we would have met when we were like teens to early 20s, we would have been best friends, because same thing, like I think it was 20 when my instructor first gave me a key, and me and my buddy both had keys, and same thing. We were there 7 days a week. We'd stay 3 hours after class was done. We'd go on Saturdays and Sundays. We were training all the time and just loved it. Yeah, we'd go to a martial arts movie and be like, oh, that's a cool move. Let's go back to the gym after the movie and try it.
Yep.
So yeah, that's awesome. I think we would have got along great.
Yeah, for sure, Brian.
So in all your years of martial arts, is there one philosophy you've learned that is at the top of your list?
Yeah, I'd say this, that always be a student. That's my philosophy, because it's like, to me, martial arts is about humility, and it is very good to be humble. Mm-hmm. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu has really not only made me think different about, say, Kenpo, but it's good to always be open to learn. When you think that you have all the answers, it's not a good thing. Right. There's so much out there, right? And I'm not an instructor that likes to slam styles, like for example, sometimes you mentioned Taekwondo. Sometimes you'll see Kenpo people go, Taekwondo. You know something? I remember fighting a Taekwondo black belt, and oh my goodness, it was one of the toughest fights of my life. So or sometimes in Kenpo we like to slam traditional martial arts and say traditional means it's not logical and practical like our art. Have you ever fought a really good traditional black belt? Because I have. They're tough dudes, right? So I appreciate and respect all martial arts. Of course, my passion is American Kenpo all the way.
Yeah.
But I respect all the arts and anyone who devotes their time to train. So my I guess I might say my philosophy is eagerness to learn and humility. It's so important that now that I received it, my 9th degree, we're redoing our certificates, and I'm working on putting a direct quote about that right on the certificate.
Nice. That'll be cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Overall, the year's worst martial arts related injury.
I've been pretty fortunate not to, I can't tell you how many times, I fight a lot. I still do, usually at least once a week. I can't tell you how many times I get up, I don't know, maybe use the washroom in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, I can't put any weight on this foot at all. It's like, you throw a kick, and, you maybe try to side kick someone, and you catch an elbow, and it's like the size of a balloon, but I've healed quick. Maybe if I had to say one of my worst would probably be a pulled hamstring was pretty bad.
Yep.
That was really bad. I've had that a couple times, but one in particular was really bad. And, you look at my ankle and my foot and you think, 100% it's broken. I forgot one to mention too. I'm convinced I broke my arm, but I didn't go in. So I went and fought in the Ontario Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Championships to test my skill. And I got caught in the final match. I made it to the finals. And basically I had the person in a cross choke. I had them in my guard, and I was squeezing tight. The person wasn't tapping, and my arms start getting tired. Don't forget, this is the championship fight. And I thought, I can't squeeze much harder, so I'm going to have to try a new technique. So I let go. Well, just instantly, he grabbed my arm, spun around, arm bar, and I heard it pop.
Ooh.
So it's funny. I'm driving back from basically Toronto, Canada, to London, about a 2-hour drive, and my oldest daughter is all worried about me. She says, Daddy, how'd you do? I said, I won silver, sweetie. Oh my goodness, Dad, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud. I think my arm is broken though. What? And to this day, Brian, I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years. I noticed my left arm, when I straighten it, does not look perfectly straight like my right arm. So I probably should have went in. It probably, I have no pain in it at all, but it probably didn't heal right. That was pretty bad one.
Yeah, I have a similar. Mine was actually, I'm 90% sure I tore my tricep lifting weights, and it's still, I never went in either. And it's still, there's like a little bulge in it. So it's bigger than my other arm. And it, for the most part, 99% of the time doesn't hurt. But if I do a push-up, pain just shoots through my arm, or if I pick up something heavy really fast, pain just shoots through my arm. But other than that, I deal with it. I've never gone in to get it checked.
That is so weird you said that. You're right. We are more like each other than I thought.
Exactly.
Because I used to live, breathe, sleep push-ups every day. And I had I don't know if it was torn, but rotator cuff was so bad that I don't do push-ups anymore. I do a lot of kettlebell, but I can't do push-ups because it aggravates it. So Brian, I swear, I think we know each other somehow.
Yeah, we got to meet in person sometime, I think.
No doubt.
So what are your thoughts on something like MMA in the UFC? Is that something you're a fan of?
Yeah, I used to watch UFC all the time. A little bit less so now, although I'm looking forward to the John Jones-Stipe Miocic fight. Here's what I'd say. Highly skilled fighters. Obviously, they've evolved so much from the original UFC. I think, 1993, 94, Hoist Gracie, the original one, I believe was in Denver, Colorado, really exposed to the world that if you're going to fight in something like that, you absolutely need grappling jiu-jitsu skills. I know people are really critical of the original UFCs. The Gracies, they tainted it and handpicked. Look, they didn't know who they were fighting. If you won that night, you came back and fought again, had no idea who you were fighting. Mm-hmm. There was no weight class. There was no time limit. The only two things you couldn't do were bite and eye gouge. And if you did that, you didn't even lose. You just lost your purse, your pay.
Yep.
So the original UFCs were very raw. So this is me. I'm just going to say it, Brian. It's hard when I hear people of similar rank in Kenpo go, I know what I'd do to Hoist Gracie. I'd blow his knee out. Yeah, sure you would. You're like, sorry, I don't believe that. People could do anything they wanted in those original UFCs. Now today, of course, to get to your answer, it's evolved so much. Like you need jiu-jitsu, you need, striking, often Muay Thai, but very few make it to the very, very top.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of concussions, a lot of short-lived injuries. I remember Hoist Gracie saying, when people come to train with me and they say, I want to train MMA, I try to discourage it. I'm like, oh, that's what you tell them? Yeah. He goes, my father never trained me to be an MMA fighter. He trained me to be a good teacher. And a lot of times you'll hear things, Brian, like, well, if you've never been in a street fight, you really shouldn't be talking about that topic. Hoist Gracie says, I've never been in a street fight in my life. Never. Not even one.
Wow.
Yeah. And people don't know that. They said, oh, you need that fighting experience if you're going to, he goes, I went into the UFC. The only thing I had done is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I had never been in one fight and I still haven't. But yet he goes in there at basically no rules and wins them all with no street experience at all.
Yeah.
And, I've said this before to my black belts as an encouragement, even saying that I get like my hair sticks up on my, this is how good he was. I do not have this confidence. He was trained by his dad, Elio Gracie, co-founder of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And his dad told him, you are not to draw blood on anybody, because if you do, people will think you got a lucky shot in. You're going to make everybody that you fight tap. And like, my goodness, like I'm just thinking, if I was in UFC, I would do anything and everything to win. Yeah. Hoist was told not to.
Wow.
Like, how good you have to be
yeah,
to win just by making someone say uncle. Like, oh my goodness, the technique. So while I appreciate a lot of things that are said about me, from my black belts and those who train, I do not have that confidence to be able to win without even without punching them in the nose, kicking them in the groin, kick the knee. No, just by making them tap. My gosh, that's good.
Yeah, that's insane. All right, I have a few fun questions we use to wrap up the show. Sure. So we were just talking about the UFC. So let's say on a whim you decided you're going to fight in the UFC. What walk-up song are you using?
Wow. I would put on Tom Petty, Won't Back Down.
Nice. God, no one's ever picked Tom Petty before. I love it. Yeah. Nice. Okay. That's a good one. Okay. All right. Now this one, it doesn't have to be 4. I've had people give as few as 2 and as many as 8, but just 3, 4, 5 names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
Oh, for sure. Ed Parker.
Nice.
Elio Gracie. Hordian Gracie, co-founder of UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lee.
Nice.
I'll do one more. Grandmaster Remy Presas.
Very cool. That's a stacked Mount Rushmore. I like it. Okay. All right. Now, other than your own, favorite martial arts book?
Infinite Insights into Kenpo.
Love it. I bought that when I was, I think, 10 years old.
Yep.
About all five of them. Yep. So that is cool. Yeah, I think we got to be pretty close to the same age. I was born in 74.
I was born in 74, Brian.
Yeah. January 24th, 1974.
Oh, you're so old. I'm November 29th.
Okay. I was going to say, just hearing you talk, I knew we were really, really close in age.
Oh, wait a sec. You were born. Oh, yeah, right. So I'm turning the big 5-0 in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm turning the big 5-1 in about 2 months. So.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So I'm hoping then we're close to the same age. You might have an answer for this. Do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming?
I never really got into gaming. I mean, I guess when I was a university student, undergrad, 92 to 95, once in a while I'd play Mortal Kombat.
Nice. That one's picked a lot. That's probably that one. I'd say that one, Tekken, and Street Fighter are the 3 most picked games. So.
Yeah.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Oh, that's so easy. The Cobra Kai.
You're a fan. I love it. Okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? My favorite martial arts movie of all time, you're going to go, no way.
Mm-hmm.
The good old Karate Kid series. I'll tell you why. I've had fun debates with Todd Durgan, Paul Casey,
Mm-hmm.
others. Like, oh, Jamie, but you got to what about the Jackie Chan and I get that with like high level skill martial, but I love the morality
Yes.
of the Karate Kid. They're always the messages of humility. Like I use them still in classes.
Mm-hmm. And that's my pick too. And the whole reason it's my pick is because June of 1984, me and my friends went on opening night to the Karate Kid in my hometown. And as we were walking out of the movie theater, local Tung Sudo school was standing in the lobby in their uniforms, handing out free passes.
How cool is that?
Yep, started class 2 days later. So
that is so awesome.
Yeah. So that one always has a special place in my heart. And I've been lucky enough. I've had 5 or 6 people connected with the Karate Kid universe on the show now.
Awesome.
I've been very, very lucky. I was very lucky to get Fumio Demura before he passed away, which was just an amazing interview. Such a great guy, such a funny guy.
I did not. I'll have to listen to that. I met Fumio Demura in '99.
Wow.
I was inducted into the Masters Hall of Fame. And that was 2000.
Okay.
In 2000 in Newport Beach, California. And Fumio was there.
That's
My
cool.
goodness, the humility. Wow.
Yeah.
He was a true master.
He was great. Yeah, I've had him. I had Sean Kanan, Mike Barnes.
Wow.
Was on the show.
So cool.
Yeah, William Christopher Ford, who was one of Sean Kanan's sidekicks in Karate Kid 3. I had Ron Thomas.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah. I've been, like I said, I've been lucky. They say yes, so it's kind of cool to talk to those. I'm trying to get William Zabka. He's definitely one of my dream guests.
Oh, that would be so.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Of all the people, like people would go, like, wouldn't you want to meet? I don't know, Tom Cruise. No, for me it'd be like Ralph Macchio,
Yes.
William Zabka, right? Because I grew up watching them for 40 years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like when people ask me my martial arts Mount Rushmore, I always put, I put Mr. Miyagi on there. Like he's on my Mount Rushmore. Because literally, I tell people he was literally my first instructor. He's the reason I stuck with it and kept going. So yeah, I definitely get that. All right, final question. This one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've ever seen, favorite movie fight scene?
Favorite movie fight scene? There's so many. I guess, again, for the morality of it, you're going to be surprised when I tell you. Karate Kid Part 3. And there's a scene where, Daniel, of course, was learning from Terry Silver, mm-hmm. and Mr. Miyagi didn't know, although he saw he was getting all these injuries, and he came back to say, I thank you for the lessons, but I don't want to continue. And then, of course, Terry Silver, John Kreese, and Mike Barnes basically beat the tar out of Daniel.
Yep.
And then in comes Miyagi.
Yeah.
And it's 3-on-1.
Yep.
And Daniel probably thinks, oh, this is not going to go good for my sensei, for Mr. Miyagi. And he beats up all 3.
Yeah.
And says, now I'll train you. Like that's like, oh man, wow. That's
I love
moving,
that scene.
Yeah.
And plus the end of it with Terry laying on the ground and Mr. Miyagi's like, whoa,
right,
and making fun of him. I'm like, that is so awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
I
did like that one scene from Cobra Kai. Now that wasn't a movie,
mm-hmm.
where Daniel finally fights Terry Silver and remembers and recollects everything Terry Silver had taught him.
Yeah.
Man can't stand, he can't fight, and he does everything back to him and beats him.
Yep.
Whoa, that was a good scene too.
Yes, I know. I'm waiting for November 15th. I get
Me too.
2 weeks. I'm so mad they're splitting it into 3 parts.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. It's the one thing that makes me sad about it is if it wouldn't have been for COVID, for the pandemic, we probably would have got 7 or 8 seasons, which is really sad.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of the new movie coming out. We'll find out, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll go to it because I'm a fan, but like I wasn't a fan of the Jackie Chan one. I
wasn't either. So when I heard he was coming in this one, I'm like, no offense, I know he's really good, but skill wise.
I love Jackie Chan, but it's like they build it as a Karate Kid remake, and now they're making it so it's canon. And it wasn't actually a remake; it's in the same universe. I'm like, no, don't change it like that. So I hope it's the kid who's starring in it. I love him. And it was the American Born Chinese. Such a good actor. So I'm looking forward to that kid being in it.
The only thing though, Brian, is like you see like a Sash, and like. Is it the Karate Kid or Kung Fu Kid?
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Like Jackie Chan taught him Kung Fu. So
right.
It'll be interesting. We'll
I like the original characters, right? All of them, right?
Yeah,
so.
We'll definitely have to stay in touch after the new seasons and the movies come out and talk about it. So before I let you go, anything that I forgot to ask you, or you just want to be sure we get out there?
No, I guess I would just say, like, thanks so much. You whether you know this or not, what you're doing is such a massive service to so many people that are eager to learn about different people's stories, and just glad I could be a small part of it.
Hey, I seriously, I truly appreciate it. And I know I've known about you for a while, and you were actually on my list as someone to reach out. I try to, I try to spread out like the styles and stuff, so I don't have like 5 Kung Fu people in a row or 5 Kenpo people in a row and stuff like that. And I've had a good number of Kenpo people. Because I had, my very first guest was Tom Bleeker. I've had Rick Avery. I've had Jeff Speakman. I've had Larry Tatum. So I've had, a good number, and I have my list, and I also have my dream list of people I'm still hoping to get. And I'm actually getting ready to record in 2 weeks. I'll be recording my 200th episode that'll come out in January. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it, and people seem to like it. And every episode, I get more and more listeners, so it's growing for sure. I've had a lot of good suggestions, even from just listeners. Say, hey, you should talk to this person, and I'll reach out, and they'll say yes. And
that's so cool.
So yeah, I love it, and I think people are really going to enjoy this episode. I love your story.
Thanks so much, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.